The governor says Elijah McClain should be alive today and appointed a special prosecutor, the state's attorney general, to investigate his death. Dismantling racism requires understanding privilege. That can start with a simple Google search. Another round of updates on COVID-19 came with a familiar feeling when we got in trouble as kids. That's next.
There was a resounding consensus from several of Colorado's leaders regarding Elijah McClain today that he should still be alive. The governor signed an executive order appointing the attorney general as a special prosecutor to investigate his death. This is after the district attorney for the 17th Judicial District said that he wouldn't reopen the case without new evidence. Now, Elijah McClain passed away last August after a struggle with Aurora police. This means 2 investigations into his death are now in the works. The one that was announced this afternoon is a first of its kind. As far as the Attorney General's office can tell, it is the first time a Colorado Attorney General was appointed to investigate an officer-involved death after a DA declined to bring charges. There's also a push from Aurora City Council members for an independent third-party investigation. Now, the statement Elijah McClain should not be dead echoed from several offices today, from the governor, the attorney general, and the state representative who sponsored Colorado's sweeping police reform bill. It also came from DA Young, who released a statement explaining that his role in the process and his decision-making so far, saying, quote, Elijah McClain's death was both tragic and unnecessary. But the district attorney says with the evidence he has, he cannot prove homicide beyond a reasonable doubt. And even if he does agree with public opinion on the case, the DA did not file criminal charges and the officers were cleared. But with today's announcement, that process is starting over again. With less than a week to go before ballots are due, we have got the results of the only independent poll when it comes to looking at Colorado's Senate primary. So 9 News ended up pairing with ColoradoPolitics.com for this. And this is the election that's going to decide which Democrat runs against Republican Cory Gardner for a seat in the U.S. Senate. The race could play a role in which party controls the Senate in 2021. Former Colorado House Speaker Andrew Romanoff and former Governor John Hickenlooper, they are both going for this. Results for this poll are out now, and we're posting every question and its results online. So there were more than 30 questions on this poll. The key questions we wanted to know: Hickenlooper or Romanoff, and who do Democrats and unaffiliated voters think have a better chance against Senator Cory Gardner? So you know who we're going to bring in now, of course, politics guy Marshall Zellinger, and you've been spending the day kind of breaking down what we found out in this poll.
Anusha, we've only heard one poll from Andrew Romanoff's campaign that showed that he was down. I think the number was like 12 points, but that came from a candidate. So we were curious. John Hickenlooper is popular. He's riding a wave of just name recognition. Does it matter? So we did this poll to find out what's really going on with the Senate race that we'll know the results from Tuesday. Andrew Romanoff or John Hickenlooper. That's the choice on the June 30th Democratic primary ballot. Between Friday and yesterday, Survey USA conducted a Democratic U.S. Senate primary poll for 9 News and ColoradoPolitics.com. More than 1,400 registered voters were surveyed. 575 of them were Democrats or unaffiliated voters likely to turn in a Democratic primary ballot. By a 2-to-1 margin, Hickenlooper is the popular choice for those 575. 58% said they would mark their ballot for Hickenlooper, 28% for Romanoff, 15% said they were still undecided. Now let's look at that group of voters who would mark their ballot for Hickenlooper. 57% of those people said they will vote for him enthusiastically. 1/3 will do so with reservations. Of the 28% who plan to vote for Romanoff, half will do so enthusiastically, almost half will do so with reservations. When asked if they're voting for a candidate or against the other guy, almost all of those who say they support Hickenlooper are doing so for him. 64% of Romanoff voters are doing so for him. Nearly 1/3 are voting for Romanoff because they say they're against Hickenlooper. We also asked the 575 likely Democratic primary voters about Hickenlooper's ethics violations. Overwhelmingly, 62% believe Hickenlooper is an ethical guy who made some mistakes. Just 1 in 10 found him to be fundamentally unethical. And finally, of those 575, we asked who do they believe has a better chance of defeating Republican Senator Cory Gardner. 2/3 chose Hickenlooper. Just 18% said Romanoff. That stat there at the end is actually one of the most interesting that I found, because at the beginning you heard that 58% support Hickenlooper, yet 67% more than support him believe he's got the better chance to defeat Cory Gardner. Thought differently, Andrew Romanoff has support of 28%, but only 18% believe he could beat the Republican, so he's got less support in the general election, essentially. Anusha.
All right, and we know you got a lot more work coming ahead this night, so we appreciate it. Thanks, Marshall. We want to go back to Elijah McClain for a moment here. This is a death that we first covered in August of last year, but there's been a lot of national scrutiny over just the last few days. So using body camera footage from that night, Chris Vanderveen is walking us through the critical aspects of what happened.
Elijah McClain was 23 years old, 5'7". He weighed 140 pounds. On the night of August 24th of last year, a man called 911.
911, what is the address of the emergency?
A little after 10:30 p.m.
He's walking south on Billing Street. He has a mask on.
Okay. Were any weapons involved or mentioned?
No.
Okay.
At 10:43 p.m., Aurora police officers spot the man in the mask. In less than a half hour, McClain will be in the back of an ambulance receiving CPR.
Hey, stop right there. Stop. 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 I have a right to stop you because you're being suspicious.
In order to better understand this story, you should know a few things. One, within 19 seconds of making contact, this happens.
No, let go of me. No, I am an introvert. Please respect the boundaries that I am speaking. Stop tensing up. Stop. Relax. Stop. I'm going home. Relax, or I'm going to have to change this situation. Stop. Leave me alone.
Sir, can you please?
No, can you leave me alone?
Keep in mind, at this point, McClain had committed no crime. As body cameras and officers and McClain fall to the ground, one officer says this.
Grab your gun, dude. Stop, dude.
You can't exactly see what happens next, but based on the audio, it's clear this is the moment officers apply what's known as a carotid hold on McClain's neck.
Give us some more units. We're fighting them.
The local district attorney reports at this point, McClain loses consciousness briefly. At 10:45 p.m., or a little more than 2 minutes after police made contact with him, McClain is talking.
My name's Elijah McClain.
Yeah, I'm ready to use carotid.
That's what I was doing. I was just going home.
8 minutes will pass with McClain handcuffed down to the ground, occasionally throwing up, occasionally causing officers to say this.
Dude, chill out.
And then at 10:54 p.m., with McClain still on the ground, an officer says this.
So when the ambulance gets here, we're going to go ahead and give him some ketamine. Yeah, sounds good. Perfect. Let's give that a couple of minutes and then we'll put him on.
Whatever he's on, he has incredible strength.
Yeah, crazy strength.
1 minute before 11 p.m., McClain receives 500 milligrams of ketamine, an anesthetic. An autopsy will suggest McClain had a therapeutic level in his blood. In other words, not enough in the mind of the coroner to kill him.
It looks like it's starting to kick in.
7 minutes later,
He just cored. Are you serious? Yeah.
responding officers are told McClain in the back of an ambulance has no pulse. He would be revived, but 3 days later, doctors would remove life support for the brain-dead 23-year-old. Chris Vanderveen, 9 News.
Okay, yeah, you guys...
From meatpacking plants to nursing homes, new data connects two of the state's biggest COVID-19 outbreaks. And Denver's recent take on an important COVID-19 number, it kind of reminds us of getting grounded, only with way more severe consequences.
The ACLU is suing Denver on behalf of Black Lives Matter and people who were hurt during recent protests. Specifically, this lawsuit is challenging the Denver Police Department's use of tear gas and less lethal weapons used against nonviolent protesters. The department is already under a temporary restraining order that is limiting the use of those methods. That order was extended a couple of weeks ago and is set to expire tomorrow. Now, addressing racism is going to feel uncomfortable, but that's really how you know you're doing some real work. And people are asking questions, so we're working to answer those questions one by one. Yesterday, we talked about equality versus equity. Today, we're talking about white privilege. Here's a part of our conversation with Dr. Ryan Ross.
When somebody says white privilege, what we're not saying is that white people don't work hard, don't have trials or tribulations, haven't had to overcome things, and haven't earned what it is they have. White privilege is based on a system of automatic, taken for granted advantages that white people have because of policy, because of legislation, and because of the way America and the systems were created.
What are the questions people can ask themselves?
The question is about disparity. In your everyday lived experience, do you have to worry about explaining to your child, why you should or should not go somewhere, or why somebody is going to attack you, or why somebody might ask you why you're in a certain neighborhood? What part of history hasn't been told? And when you begin to read and see some of the things that have happened, you very quickly begin to see that there were systems created to hold other people down. Think about redlining, right? When the government really created areas where investment wouldn't happen, but you've got to acknowledge that it's time to get in the game and get educated. And to be honest, I didn't know. And once you say that, okay, great, now ignorance can no longer be bliss. And now you have the responsibility to not only educate yourselves, but educate and challenge your own circle.
So this can start with a simple Google search or reaching out to the Blair Caldwell African American Research Library. And I think there is an opportunity here for a lot of us to just start reflecting. And I wouldn't be saying this if it wasn't something that I was doing myself. I've talked about racism on this show that I have faced as an Indian American woman, but it's never been violent towards me. And that was a moment I realized that I needed to stop talking, I needed to start listening, and I needed to start educating myself. Better understand these systems and beliefs that have been around for so long that are still allowing people to feel okay about yelling racial slurs, to killing someone because they're different from themselves. This is going to be uncomfortable, and it is time to get used to that if you haven't already. It's also time to just start asking questions about ourselves. Did I grow up with bias? Have I been ignorant about privilege? Identify this, shed it. Let's not pass this along to the next generation. I share some responsibility in this, and I think we all do.
Another hot day, a dry day initially with sunshine and temperatures back in the mid-90s, 10 degrees above average. But it's all changing tonight with the arrival of a cool front. We're tracking a few scattered showers and thunderstorms tonight with isolated severe cells. Tomorrow, the storms that move through may have hail in them. Storm Prediction Center has east central and northeastern Colorado in the outlook area for strong thunderstorms late in the day. But really, the big story tomorrow will be the cool down. Tonight, a few showers early, then clearing, low 59. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, high 79, 80 degrees. Good chance of rain from storms, and then a nice weekend warming trend. A couple of thunderstorms Saturday afternoon with highs near 90, sunshine and low 90s for Sunday and Monday.
All right, thanks for that, Kathy. Appreciate it. Well, a round of COVID-19 updates from the city of Denver had a familiar feel to it. It had a line that a lot of us probably heard when we were kids. Yesterday, the city was talking about testing capacity, how hospitalization trends are continuing downwards, and how the positivity rate for Denver is around 3%. That's stabilizing. That's staying low. That's really good. But then the city warned if that number goes up greater than 5%, they will not hesitate to call a timeout on relaxing restrictions. The governor also talked about an uptick in cases from after June 7th that the state is keeping an eye on. And in all seriousness, though, this is a reminder of just how quickly the virus can reemerge. So remember, just keep your physical distance and keep wearing those masks. And for the last couple of months, we have seen families standing on different sides of a window to talk to their loved ones inside a nursing home. Well, now they can finally see each other in person, but only outside and with a whole bunch of restrictions. So testing at the beginning of the pandemic may have saved lives. Our Mark Salinger has more.
For the first time, we're getting a look at how some of the deadliest COVID-19 outbreaks in the state started and what was done to try and save lives. In Morgan County, at least 57 residents and 36 staff members tested positive for COVID-19 at the Ebenezer Lutheran Care Center. Through documents released by the Northeast Colorado Health Department, we have learned an employee first tested positive on March 30th. Several employees had family members that worked at the Cargill meat plant, where a large outbreak was also reported. The first resident tested positive on April 4th. From there, documents reveal it was a challenge to get the facility the proper PPE and testing it needed. At least 18 residents died over the next 2 months before the outbreak was declared over on June 15th. That means the facility has had no new cases for 28 days.
Another lesson learned that we have found is that the spread is often caused by asymptomatic cases, so people who are not displaying symptoms.
Annie Nolan works with Jefferson County Public Health. She says a lack of testing at the beginning of the pandemic allowed the virus to spread through facilities.
I would say the larger outbreaks, those were largely due to asymptomatic spread.
Keeping sick patients isolated is one of the most important strategies health officials use to stop outbreaks in senior care centers. But why do some facilities see dozens of cases while others see none? It's a question public health officials still fully don't have an answer to.
It's not black and white, for sure. It's a combination of a lot of factors, and it's different for every facility.
And the state began allowing outdoor visitation yesterday, but like we said, it comes with a lot of rules. First off, everybody has to wear a mask. No more than 8 people can be in one place at one time, and everybody has to sign up for a time slot. Anusha?
All right, Mark, I know that is incredibly important information for a lot of people, so we really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. All right, we'll be right back. So one of our viewers, Bridget, was asking why I keep standing in front of the brick wall. Well, first of all, I'm definitely sitting. You overestimate my stamina. But also, this is a hallway at home that has enough space for the studio, and that's basically why I'm sitting here. We'll see you next time.